Welcome to Epicenter, the hub of innovation in the heart of Helsinki, where ideas come to life and creativity thrives, where innovation meets community. Get ready to learn, network, and make an impact. Let's go.
All right. Good afternoon, Helsinki. What? Claps before I even ask for them? What's happening? I'm training you. It's like Pavlov's dog. You see me, you clap. I am feeling really good about that. Hey, I know that today it snowed, which was random, but then it was sunny for a little while, and then it snowed again. But thank you all so much for making the journey in. As many of you know, my name is Joey. I'm the head of community here at Epicenter Helsinki. For those who don't know, Epicenter Helsinki is a hub. It's a playground for like-minded people to come together, to share ideas, to network, and to grow. We truly believe that innovation lies within collaboration. And the only way to collaborate is to get people in the same room who all care about the same thing and to truly supercharge our local entrepreneurial ecosystem. That sounds really good, huh? It's like maybe I've said that once or twice. All right, so we have a little bit of a tradition here at Epicenter where we sort of take the mood. We calm everyone's nerves, particularly myself, and we take the first 10 seconds and we absolutely lose our brains. That means we cheer as loud as we can, we clap, we let them hear us in Espoo. Don't know where Espoo is. Someone told me that that's close. No, close enough, but far enough, hey? All right, so let's take the first 10 seconds and absolutely go crazy. Go. There goes my guy right there, hooting and hollering. Now that feels good, right? Now we're all smiling at each other. You're like, I got all this pent-up energy. I take that as a personal victory. I feel good about my own self. All right, let's start. So, like I mentioned, you're at Epicenter Helsinki, and I want to introduce you or welcome you to Sustainable Solutions. This is a monthly event series dedicated to unraveling the complexities, but also celebrating the innovations in green and clean technology. Over the course of the year, we're going to look into topics and this sort of dynamic world of clean energy, eco-friendly strategies, sustainable development, and so much more. Hopefully bridging the gap between today's challenges and tomorrow's solutions. Tonight, we're going to look at Finland's role as a global leader in sustainable energy practices. With an energy ecosystem that emphasizes efficiency, sustainability, and innovation, Finland stands at the forefront of integrating renewable energy sources such as wind, solar, and hydrogen power into its national grid. The country's commitment to reducing its carbon footprint and increasing energy independence sets a benchmark for nations worldwide, right? And we need to start to talk about this on a more regular basis. So tonight, we're going to look at the intricacies of a vibrant ecosystem and the latest advancements. We'll start the evening with a keynote offering an in-depth look at how renewable energy, technological innovation, and forward-thinking policies are driving Finland toward achieving its sustainability goals. Next, we'll pivot to a panel discussion where we'll dissect the latest in solar, wind, and green hydrogen power technologies and their implementations across Finland. How does that sound? Yeah. I like it when we talk back to me because then that means that all that nonsense I just wrote made sense. You're like, you didn't stay up till 3 a.m. writing this for nothing. It made sense to me. Okay, let's get started. Shall we get started? Yes. All right. So first, Finland aims to be carbon neutral by 2035, a goal that requires innovation, commitment, and a shift toward renewable energy. Today, we're diving into how we can achieve this. Guided by Janne, He's going to outline our current strategies, the role of technologies, and how policy supports our green energy transition. As a chief policy advisor at the Confederation of Finnish Industries, or EK, Janne brings a wealth of experience from his time at Citra and his academic background from Aalto University and HEC Paris. His work focuses on marrying economic growth with environmental sustainability, crucial for our future competitiveness. So please help me welcome to the stage Janne, who's a chief policy advisor of the Confederation of Finnish Industries.
Great. Thank you, Joey.
Absolutely.
Great to be here.
Well, we'll slide that for you.
I broke it.
No, you didn't.
I'll start off with the typical slides on the climate change, and then we revolve around why Finland is the country that's going to be the first one in really tackling these issues the best. But starting off with the bad news, it's 2024, if my calendar is right, and 23 of the hottest years, or of the 25 hottest years on the record are during this millennium. Last 10 years were the hottest 10 years ever, and last year was the hottest on record. So that's the bad news that's constantly coming in. And the poorer news is that that's going to continue. This is IPCC, that's the Global Climate Change Panel. Basically, what they're telling us again and again is that we need to halve global emissions by 2030 and then be carbon neutral by 2050. And that's a heck of a task to do, especially if we look at the red line, which is basically the direction we are currently headed towards. So that's going to mean especially a lot of innovations, a lot of investments, and a huge amount of scaling up these solutions. And that's the next part of the story. Now, when we look at the sources of these emissions, I think it was Bill Clinton who said it's the energy, stupid. Basically, if we want to decarbonize the globe, we need to start with the energy, and that basically brings us to electricity as one of the key energy carriers. The good news, and I'm not expecting that you're reading this, it's my favorite font size, it's number 5. Good news is that we actually know the solutions that can really get us there. It's not about the technology, or it's not about the technological innovation pipeline that wouldn't be sufficient. What's missing at this stage is our ability to scale them up fast enough. The charts on the emission pathways are really deeply going down, and at the same time, the investments in new innovation should be going up at the same pace, and that's currently where we are still falling behind. But basically, we know how to decarbonize electricity production. We know most of the energy carriers, how to make them emission-free. We know how to decarbonize transport, and we know many of the industrial solutions that are needed. It's only about how fast we achieve to do that. And in that, Finland is one of the best countries in the world. I've come up with this. It's an ancient Roman saying that all roads to decarbonization go through electrification. So basically, the recipe for Finland, for Europe, and for all other countries in the world is that you have to first decarbonize your electricity production, and then you electrify all other sectors in the society in the merit order of cost effectiveness. And that's what we're seeing that's already happening now. That's happening in Finland, and that's going to happen in other countries as well. The funny thing is that electricity really cannot do everything. There are some industrial processes where electricity, just as of current knowledge, is not going to be enough. And that's where we are going to need indirect electrification, which basically means hydrogen. And those are basically the topics that we are going to talk about today. So how to rapidly scale up the production of green electricity, and how to utilize that best in different industrial processes, in transport and across other sectors, and what's the outlook for the role of hydrogen. And this is where Finland is really leading the pack. Last year, the statistics tell us that 94% of all electricity produced in Finland was carbon-free. So basically, we are already at least 1 or 2 decades ahead of our competing countries in the Central Europe. Sweden is still ahead of us, but just slightly. And what's really putting us in front of Sweden in this race is that we actually have a functioning electricity grid. So that means that we can attach new investments in the grid, both in generation and demand side. But then when we look at the future, this is Fingrid, it's the national transmission grid organization. This is their prognosis of how the future of electricity system in Finland will look like in the future. And you can really see that what's driving the additional demand of electricity. So that's actually how electrification in our society and economy is going to roll out. First, basically, we see that transport sector, it's going to be electrified anyways, but it's only a fraction of the total electricity use. So when we really want to focus on really big emission reductions, we really have to look at industry. And that's something that's going to change the electricity game in Finland over the course of the years. Then when we look at how the electricity generation is going to be impacted over the next decade, we can see that actually wind power is going to explode in Finland. And that's something that we are already seeing in the market. But that's something that we need to see more of that. Then we're seeing that solar power is going to play a significant role in our electricity system, which is kind of funny when you look out of the window in March and it's snowing. Finland is still going to be a major player in solar as well. Coming to my second favorite font size, this is font size number 3. It's just highlighting all the kind of advantages that Finland has in the green transition. It's a very good report by Climate Leadership Coalition and Boston Consulting Group. It's basically laying out that Finland is pretty much the best in all the criterions that are related to green transition. We have the raw materials for batteries. We have a very good and committed society. People are knowledgeable of climate change, and our government has set the target of becoming carbon neutral by 2035. That was the previous government, and now we have a different government, and they still stuck with that ambition. So that's quite unheard of in global terms, that somebody would say that we are going to be carbon neutral by 2035, and then that it would be a policy legacy that sticks on and it kind of keeps on inspiring companies to take their investments in the transition. At the same time, when you think about what Finland is famous for, it's not the weather, but it's the good engineering knowledge. Of course, the data and ICT sector heritage from Nokia, but it's the process engineering excellence that Finland is known for. And that's something that's going to be needed quite a lot in the green transition. So those engineers who have the ingenuity to make processes leaner, faster, resource wiser, less energy consuming, those are the ones who are going to win the race in the green transition. And those are the kind of benefits and values that the Finnish engineering heritage is actually built on. Then we have ample of clean water, we have stable business environment, but we have one of the best locations in Europe in producing renewable electricity. Finland has a lot of space and our wind conditions are just astonishingly good. That combined with our efficient electricity market really creates the basis of being a superpower in the green transition. Oops, there's something blue there. But this is basically the narrative that we are trying to advocate from the Confederation of Finnish Industries. We basically have 2 tasks ahead of us in Finland. The first one is to reduce our carbon footprint. So that's achieving the 2035 carbon neutrality target, to be the first country in the world to be carbon neutral and showing to others that this can actually be done. But what's more important in terms of the current economic situation in Finland and the economic outlook is actually increasing the handprint of our activities. And that's basically helping other countries to reduce their emissions by utilizing the solutions and technologies that have been developed and innovated in Finland. So in plain English, that translates to a lot of exports. So we see that there's a huge export potential of Finnish technologies in the green transition, and this is something that we want to see. the blue line here in the bottom is it's basically the turnover of environmental businesses in Finland, and that increased by 33% over the past 10 years. And there is absolutely no other major sector in our economy that has been achieving the same. And I'm saying that we are only seeing the glimpse of what's coming up. And yes, I have animations here. Great. About electricity generation, this is something that I like to show my colleagues in Central Europe. We are already super clean in terms of electricity. So the first question in the pathway to decarbonization is as said, generating a lot of green electricity. We've already solved that, and it's going to be kind of solved even further over the next years. And this is what we've been able to do. And just in a decade, we've been basically able to push out fossil-based electricity generation, and we've actually been also able to reduce net imports of electricity to an all-time low. The estimates are that Finland will, over the next maybe few years, become, for the first time ever, an electricity exporter. And that's kind of a really big step change in terms of our electricity and energy policy and environment. I used to think that that's a good thing. Becoming an electricity exporter, exports means money, and that's of course a good thing, right? But then when you really think of it, it's actually a sign of us not being able to invest enough in electricity consuming industries to be able to create higher value add physical goods that we can then provide to the world. So basically, if we are going to be an electricity exporter over the next decade, that will actually mean that we've failed to invest in battery generation, we've failed to invest in steel production, we've failed to invest enough in hydrogen. So this is a great picture showing the speed of the transition, but it really leads us to a situation that we are very well equipped to embark on the next step, which is basically making something really big about the green electricity that we have. And the next years will show if we failed or if we succeeded, but I hope that we will be a net importer of electricity in 2030s. I really hope that we are. Another thing about our electricity is not about it's pretty much the cleanest, but it's the cheapest in the whole of Europe. Actually, last year, electricity price was the cheapest in Finland after Sweden in the whole of Europe. And if our Finnish guests, you recall the headlines about how expensive electricity has been and how this is a huge crisis. But when you really look at the data, our electricity is actually forming a basis of competitive advantage, especially in industrial goods. And the other thing is that we are really seeing a boom on the right-hand side of the graph, that we are actually adding huge amounts of new capacity in our electricity generation. So it's already the cheapest and cleanest, but it's going to be much more available in the future as well. And then the question is that what do we do next, and how do we go into a situation what I dream of is that we are a electricity importer in 2030s. It's basically attracting these electricity consuming investments. That's battery industries, again on font size 5, but the green is a good color and it says that Finland is going to be super good in battery production across the value chain. Then the other things, steel production, again based on new technological innovations that are actually made competitive and possible by cheap, clean electricity. And then hydrogen. The previous government, they said that Finland will target a market share of 10% of EU's green hydrogen, which is going to be a major thing. And now the current government is working on ways to actually deliver on that. And this is something that's not only in the previous statistics, and it's not only on the headlines about what's going to happen in the future, but this is something that we're really seeing happening across the country as we speak. One of my funniest and laborious tasks is to update this database of green investments in Finland. It's fun because it's really enjoyable to see how many investments are being planned and how they're taking steps forward in the pipeline. But it's super laborious because, for example, I took 2 days off last week, and now for the whole weekend, after getting back home, I was typing in new rows in the Excel sheet behind this, because so many new investment announcements were made last Thursday and Friday. And just today, I had to pull out of meetings to update 3 more lines to 2 new hydrogen investments and another one. So Finland is really booming in this sense. So there are already 515 different investments in green transition up and running in Finland, totaling, that's updated on the 11th. That's already 269 billion euros worth of investments. So this is a tracker that's really running all the time. Of course, not all of these investments will go through. These are very early stage plans, and by definition, they just cannot be materialized at the same time. For example, there is 92 billion worth of wind power onshore and 75 billion worth of offshore wind power planned. You just can't fit that much wind power into one system, at least at this time window. So not all of these will go through, but they will create the basis for attracting other investments. And then when we look at the other investment, it's hydrogen, batteries, steel, solar power, energy storages, electrification of heating sector, and other industrial applications. So it's really kind of proving the point that we are already well advanced on the pathway to decarbonizing our whole economy because of the green electricity. And when I talk about this with my colleagues from Central Europe, they can't believe their ears. And when I show this to them, they can't believe their eyes, because they're so troubled with the natural gas and electricity crisis and energy crisis that they're faced with. So I'm claiming that over the next 5 to 10 years, Finland will really witness a large boom in these green investments. And if we fail to do that, then we're just kind of an electricity exporter that's not going to be a very prosperous country. And now we're basically in a decisive point. Do we really get these investments here? Or do we kind of sit back and enjoy the ride and be a happy electricity exporter and much poorer one? So I'm wrapping up with this, but basically we are on the verge of a real industrial boom, and what's happening in Finland today will be happening across Europe over the next 2 decades, and what is going to be happening across the globe in the next 3 or 4 decades. So basically, we are really in the vanguard of this transition, and the experiences and innovations that we are gathering here today are something that are going to be scalable across the globe. So this is going to present a lot of great opportunities for Finnish businesses and Finnish investors to actually gather the knowledge that everyone will be seeking for over the next years to come. So with this, I'm leaving you very excited about the green investments boom that Finland is currently enjoying. Thank you.
Perfect. Let's give Janne a huge round of applause. Janne is actually going to join us for our panel that we have next, so we'll skip to Q&A in a second. One moment while we... Awesome. Okay, first, I'd like to invite our next panelist to the stage. He is the country manager of Alight in Finland. Since joining Alight in 2016, Alexander has played a pivotal role in expanding the business and teams across Europe, showcasing his prowess in business development, sales, and people operations. He holds a master's degree in operations management from Stockholm University. So please, let's give a huge round of applause to Alexander, who's the country manager of Alight Finland.
Thank you.
Next, let's bring to the stage a trailblazer in renewable energy with a deep passion for sustainability. He's dedicated to advancing economic growth through clean energy solutions, and he's always impeccably dressed. Let's welcome to the stage Sampa, who's a partner of Winley. Okay, so the economy of green energy encompasses the financial, social, and environmental implications of transitioning from fossil fuels to renewable energy sources like solar, wind, and green hydrogen power. This also includes the dynamics of investment, job creation, market policies, and technological innovations that drive this adoption and integration into the green energy system. During today's panel, we'll discuss the challenges and opportunities within Finland's energy landscape, offering insights into the environmental, economic, and societal shifts driving us toward sustainable living. So we'll go right into it. Janne, Finland is aiming high with its climate goals that you just mentioned there, eyeing carbon neutrality by 2035. It's a bold move that puts a lot of eyes on energy transitions across entire sectors. With the Confederation of Finnish Industries right in the mix, shaping economic policy and landscapes. So how are current policies rolling out the welcome mat for Finnish businesses to step into green energy? And I'm curious about the magic behind these policies and the aim to keep businesses competitive while also being eco-friendly. What are your thoughts there?
I start from the magic behind. It's basically that our businesses want it. We operate and collaborate with the government saying that we want tough climate policy, we want ambitious climate policy, and we want tough policies to drive us to the right direction. And it comes with the realization of the Finnish companies and their leaders that basically the green transition will be an investment challenge. And the faster we do these investments, the better off is everyone going to be. And the relative winners of this whole transition are going to be those companies who are innovative enough and bold enough to embark on these investments in kind of within the forerunners. And Finnish companies are those. As said, they have all the prerequisites of really winning in this game. They are energy efficient, they are savvy with technologies and IT, and of course it boils down to the electricity mix that we have, which is becoming cleaner and cleaner by the day. So that, I think the realization and kind of the tide shift happened maybe 10, 15 years ago. The traditional view is, of course, that the industry is against any climate policy, but then we really took the strategic view on the topic and we realized that it's actually the opposite. So the tougher climate policy the world is doing, the tougher climate policy EU is doing, and the tougher climate policy Finland is doing, the better off our industries are. About current government policies, I'm actually quite happy with those. Before the elections, there was quite a lot of talk that whether 2035 is too ambitious or not. The current government, they boldly stood up and they said that 2035, that's our ambitions and we'll stick with that. Even though it's going to be difficult, even though it's going to be challenging, we're kind of pushing policies that are taking us there. In terms of individual policies, there's nothing more important than the EU emissions trading. Again, a market mechanism that puts a price on emissions, and those who are able to reduce their emissions the cheapest, those are the best off in that game. And that's how markets work. So the more we have market-based mechanisms across sectors that adopt it, the better off the good and savvy companies are. And of course, the Finnish companies are those who are best positioned to take on the challenge.
I see you shaking your head.
Yeah, just as you mentioned during your show here that Finland has the most green energy in its system, and we also have the cheapest electricity here, so the market is working as it should.
There was maybe a conflicting article in Yle a couple of weeks ago that said that the the goal is of 2035 is slipping away, right, due to deforestation or cutting down the trees at a rapid rate, more rapid than we have in years past because we're not getting as many trees from Russia due to the war. So this is going to make deforestation not binding for carbon dioxide. So what are your thoughts there? Is that overstating? Yeah.
Yep. That is a real issue. Basically, in climate policy, we have three different sectors. The first one is the emission trading sector. That's energy and industry. We are going to overachieve kind of the pathway towards 2035 and beyond. So we're going to hit targets faster and better than thought before. Then there is the effort sharing sector, which is basically transport and agriculture. And that's something that's challenging for us. But now that we are seeing the kind of passenger vehicle fleet decarbonizing super rapidly, and we are expecting to see that also in heavy transport, it's within reach. But something that has become a challenge for Finnish climate policies is the forest sector. So it's basically the land use and land use change sector. So basically, the new scientific base that came up a few years ago has really challenged the assumptions that we had in the past. And now the current government is really kind of working on the problem and hoping to solve it somehow. Let's see how good the measures they can put in place. But there is a silver lining, which is basically that Finland will be somewhat forced to fast track the development of technological carbon sinks. So that's basically carbon capture from the industrial assets or directly from the air. So Finland is going to fast track in that sector because of our challenges with our forest, and that's something that's going to be a major industry in a global scale in the future. So yeah, it's going to be challenging, but it's not impossible. And the key sectors, energy, industry, and transport, they are moving even ahead of schedule.
Okay. So we're still team 2035.
We are.
In this panel. Anyone disagree?
No, we have to believe that, right? And I moved here to Helsinki from Stockholm because I kind of believe in the Finnish market. Because, well, not only because Fingrid has been so progressive over the years, if you compare to the Swedish equivalent. And so, but of course, there's a lot of work to do to get there. And as you could see on the slide earlier, solar is only 0.8% of yearly electricity production currently, and so that's kind of what I aim at adding to.
Perfect.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad that we're still Team 2035 because that's something that I've been boasting about, and I want to be able to still have something to champion. But let's keep the conversation going. So, power purchase agreements or PPAs are shaking things up globally, acting as a renewable energy handshake, if you will, between businesses and suppliers. Let's call it like a modern day eco-friendly pact, right? So I'd love to hear first from anyone on the panel. Let's give a breakdown of what PPAs are and what's really going on in pushing with PPAs and pushing Finland toward its renewable goals. Are they actually as game-changing as they sound?
All right, so firstly, what are PPAs, power purchase agreements? So basically, in Finland, we have a lot of this new renewable energy, which is coming from wind plants or solar farms. And in order for those developments to materialize, you need to be able to sell the electricity often beforehand to someone who has a lot of demand, so a big consumer. Let's say for a company like Stora Enso, for example, that's a very known company here in Finland. So what happens is that they will make an agreement, power purchase agreement, with the producer side, so with that wind farm or solar park, before it's even constructed. And then you will get the loan for that project, it will be built, and then you will get new electricity renewable electricity to the grid. This is basically what a power purchase agreement is. How is it a game changer? Well, first of all, for those big companies that have this demand, of course, it's a good way for them to show the world that, okay, we are bringing new renewable energy into the world. We are making the world greener and also market themselves to be greener. In order, also, one big key point for them is like for every single one of them, those are usually fixed price contracts. So if someone from electricity company would be calling you as an individual that, hey, I have a fixed price electricity contract for you for 5 years and it's below the market price. Would you be interested in it? Probably after these last 2 or 3 years of going up and down in the electricity market, the pricing has gone balloons, so you would be interested. So there are many perks to these big companies to sign those PPAs, and also I'm sure Alexander will give his understanding and view of why it's important for you producers.
Sure, and I also think it's valuable to take a step back and remind ourselves that PPAs as a business model is not a new thing. It was kind of one of the key drivers behind the diffusion and adoption of solar in the US more than 15 years ago. So it is a great way for uniting energy buyers and sellers, and for corporates to also hedge against volatile electricity prices, as you mentioned. And if we also look at kind of the statistics of PPAs relative to all added electricity in Europe, only looking at 2023, I believe about 20% of all solar power that was added in Europe came through power purchase agreements. So it is already a substantial part of getting more renewable electricity deployed.
Well, let's stick on the topic of PPAs. And Sampa, Winley has been leading the way for PPAs in the Nordics, helping big energy users switch to green. It sounds like a critical puzzle piece in our green transition. So you mentioned one draw already, which would be like a fixed contract, right? But what's the draw for corporations in Finland to jump on the PPA bandwagon, and how is this speeding up the green transition?
Well, it's quite simple, basically, because as Janne also presented, in order for us to be a country that is producing as much as it should with the electricity that we have, so we have to be able to use that electricity somehow, and that's where the big producers coming, the big electricity consumers coming, because now that we have a surplus of electricity, we have seen that the electricity prices have gone down quite considerably compared to 1 or 2 years ago. And what this means is that we are actually quite attractive of a country to big investments currently. And that's how the market actually works. That's how it plays out. So now is the time, you said that we have about a 5-year window here maybe, to attract new investments in Finland, because now is the time that we have the grid availability. Fingrid has done a great job in that, and the electricity price is low. And as a country, Finland is safe and sound. So there are quite many big reasons for a new investment or a big player to come in Finland and sign a PPA agreement here.
Does anyone want to add to that?
Yep. If I'll just briefly joke about the PPAs. With the energy crisis, of course, the EU Commission responded very fiercely on how they do. They wrote papers and they wrote legislation, and one of their key points was to kind of boost the PPA market in electricity. And I was reading through that, and I was thinking that, well, that kind of makes sense. But haven't they heard that we already used them for a decade or two here in the Nordics? So that's, again, we have much more sophisticated electricity market. We have much more sophisticated electricity producers and buyers. back in the day when wind power started booming in Finland just after the feed-in tariffs, there were a lot of players who went into the market without PPAs. But now the PPAs have come back as a kind of risk guarantee or risk mechanism, and that's something that I consider to be a good thing. Kind of, it's a signal that the market is much more structured. It's much more kind of analytical than it was maybe 3, 4, or 5 years ago. So it's again a sign of maturity that our producers, project developers, and also the buyers are much more mature also in this segment.
So let's shift from PPAs to solar energy. So under your watch, Alexander, Light's not just growing, it's booming, right? So especially with solar energy taking a lead role in Europe's renewable scene. So what current trends in solar energy demand are you observing in Finland? And how are companies positioning themselves to support the transition to contribute to the overall economic growth?
Yep. Good question. I believe, 70 to begin with, kind of the demand side here, and the electricity consumption. About 70% of all electricity consumption comes from corporates, and this ties back to PPAs then, and what the value proposition of PPAs for corporates provide, and this is a driver for the solar energy industry, given that companies can hedge their electricity prices signing up for solar PPAs. It's also something that we see with solar. It is modular, which is good. You can build it on rooftops to industries. You can build it small size, and you can also build it very large scale. And some industries does not kind of have the demand for the power that you would get out of a large wind project. So typically wind projects might provide more electricity than what a corporate customer would be willing or needing to purchase. So that's where solar becomes a pretty good complementary energy production. Because you can build it from anywhere between the residential small villa solar to something that's very, very big. We also see that there's a good complementary between solar and wind because of their production profiles. You have a lot of solar when the wind is not blowing that much, and you have a lot of wind when the sun doesn't shine. So they're actually quite complementary. And I want to encourage people to not kind of see them as competing, but rather working together. Because when they do, you can actually provide something that looks fairly close to baseload.
Do you agree?
I agree.
I saw you shaking your head, so I thought I agree. I want to, since we're just for speaking of growth, I want to switch gears. Renewables isn't just about saving the planet, right? So it's about economic wins. So jobs, innovation, maybe even some unexpected perks. Let's open this to everyone on the panel. Could each of you share maybe an economic standout or a win that green energy has brought to the table, or one that you're banking on if you don't have anything currently?
Well, I can start. So an easy one would be, as we discussed earlier already, for the small municipalities here in Finland, you will get a lot of tax money. So if you think about a wind farm, 10 turbines to a small municipality that is struggling with their income, and as we know, Finland has some issues maybe currently with how are we going to keep the healthcare system and everything ongoing everywhere. So a lot of money is needed by the municipalities. So if you build a 10 wind farm in an area which is owned by the one municipality, you will be getting up to 300 to 500,000 euros every year more tax income, and that might be enough to double or quadruple even some municipalities' tax incomes. So that's something.
Yeah, And adding to that,
How is it in Sweden?
yeah, that's not the case in Sweden, and that was actually such a benefit with an opportunity with the Finnish market when we realized how the municipalities actually get the real estate tax. So there's actually an incentive to approve projects. Yeah. Well, I looked at the Solar Power Europe statistics from 2023. Where they provided a jobs report that showed how the solar workforce in Europe had grown with 39% last year. And this was equivalent to about 200,000 jobs in the solar sector. That's been kind of added. That's a great number. They also forecasted the number to be 1 million jobs within solar by 2030, but now they've adjusted that forecast to 2025. So that tells you something about how fast it's growing, and obviously all those jobs creates tax money and a great opportunity for countries deploying solar. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly how it is. It's the overall economic well-being that the transition is generating at all levels in our society. It's starting from the jobs and the people that get employed, and then starting from the municipalities that get additional significant revenues from not only the taxes from the land, but also from the newly employed people. Then when we look at the kind of the overall economy, Finland is basically quite in a challenging position when we look at the fiscal future of our country. Something has to be done. We have to find new sources of growth, and if we fail to do that, it's quite a scary scenario, considering who's going to kind of take care of me when I'm getting old. But kind of turning the coin. Finland is going to, according to some different estimates by BCG, McKinsey, and CLC, Finland is going to add some 100,000 or 200,000 more jobs because of the green transition and the investment that they're kind of bringing in. That's in comparison to our whole labor force. That's a huge amount of people. So a lot of welfare, well-being is going to be created just because of these jobs. Then 100 billion worth of exports by 2030 is something that's forecasted because of the green transition. Kind of, if you relate that to our GDP, which is 270 billion, that's again a massive hike in terms of value add in our economy. So kind of despite the angle that start from either the individual or the municipality or the economy, it's a win-win-win situation basically for everyone. So that's why we need to beat the Swedes in the race who's going to be the European champion.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of jobs created, right? We should probably also fix the talent shortage problem that we have as well. But Sampo.
Yeah, I'd like to quote two quite famous people or persons here. One is Björn Wahlroos, which probably all of us know, and the other one is someone called Donald Trump. So Björn Wahlroos has been stating in every single media for the couple of past years that Finland hasn't been able to grow its GDP in the last 10 or 15 years. And Donald Trump has been quoting "Make America Great Again." So basically, this is our opportunity to make Finland great and green again, and get that GDP rising. So I think it's a job for all of us in Finland. We need to push this forward.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely opportunities there, right? It's about how we capitalize on that. And you mentioned wind being a huge player in your presentation, and of course it is a key player in Finland's sustainability journey. But I'm sure there are a bit of drama there, right? So tweaks, regulatory red tape, we could name more, right? But Sampo, can you discuss the main barriers and opportunities for scaling wind energy in Finland, and how can different stakeholders work together to navigate these challenges?
All right. So first of all, I think we've done quite a good job already as in wind industry, because we have a lot. I don't know what the figure currently is, maybe 7 gigawatts
Yep.
worth of wind power currently, and in construction is maybe 2.5 more currently. So we've done a good job. But then the hurdles that I see are more on the offshore wind. So those turbines that will be built on water, on the sea. There is still a lot of things to be understood on that side. Maybe Janne has some words concerning this, but from our point of view, from Windley's point of view, we are an advisory company advising these big companies making the PPA agreements, which we talked about. So what we have seen is that the government actually would need more lawyers so that they would get these permits and just get the ball rolling quicker. It has been quite okay so far, but there is a lot of room for improvement.
So speed up the process.
Yeah.
Janne, do you want to?
I think that's number one point. Of course, it's a very big and challenging task. We're going to make investments in sums that are unheard of in the Finnish economic history, and we would be in a need to do them over the period of 5 or 10 years. So we are doing a lot of investments in a very narrow window of time. So it's going to be very challenging to kind of fit that together with the kind of good bureaucratic nature of our culture, that we take things kind of easy and slowly, and we make sure that everything is fine and okay. So that brings me to permitting. Permitting is the number one hiccup that basically all our investments have to face. And there are, of course, very good reasons and justifications on why we are strict on environmental permitting processes, because we don't want to destroy nature with the saving of climate. So we have to be able to fit these together. But at the same time, we have to find ways to make this faster and smoother. And now, for example, in the wind industry, the whole permitting process time is somewhere around 7 years when you kind of count in the appeal processes. And the permitting officials are completely overburdened. Just in one area or municipality or a group of municipalities, Etelä-Pohjanmaa, there are normally 6 environmental impact assessment for investments ongoing, and now they already have over 60, and with the same resources that they used to have. So it's a very troublesome issue, but that's something that the new government is now really focusing on. Then on the long term, it really comes to the amount of people that we have here. So basically, our population is actually diminishing as we speak, but at the same time, we would need 100,000+ of new employers or employees by 2040, 2035. So how do we really make Finland a competitive environment in the race for international employees and talents when everyone else is doing the same in Europe?
Yeah, we talk about that once a month at a series called Hired here at Epicenter Helsinki. Shameless plug. But I'm looking at the clock, and I want to leave time for Q&A, but I also want to talk about green hydrogen. So I'm just going to ask one more question about this, and then we'll open it up to the audience. So green hydrogen presents a promising look ahead for renewable energy, offering solutions for energy storage and the decarbonization of difficult to electrify sectors. How big of a splash, let's put this on the whole table, but Janne, if you want to start here. How big of a splash do you think green hydrogen can make in Finland's energy pool? I saw the numbers there, but what's needed to make sure it's a smooth integration into the economy?
Yeah. I start off with something very unprofessional, but it's a good joke. So green hydrogen is like teenage sex. Everyone talks about it, but nobody does it. And that has been the thing for at least 3-4 years now. And now we are really seeing that the boom is coming to a more of a mature stage where actually projects are really taking steps forward. And the kind of overly hyped solutions of hydrogen are really being kind of narrowed down. Finland is going to be super competitive in this, and currently we have already almost 20 billion worth of investment projects focusing on green hydrogen in Finland ongoing, and we are expecting first of them to come online into production by the end of this year. So over the course of the next 10 years, Finland will be a major player in green hydrogen in Europe if that market really lifts up. And how that's going to impact our energy system and electricity demand, there are many analysts making their projections, but basically, roughly, we're talking about whether the electricity demand in Finland will double or triple over the next 2 decades. And what's really driving that is the green hydrogen production. So it's going to really make a difference in the whole size of our electricity system, whether we'll be big in green hydrogen or not.
So we happen to be quite deep in this field also, and from Winley's perspective and from my perspective, I'd say that the key is now to get the first green hydrogen plant done. After that, others will follow. And now what we need, we have already gotten quite good push from the government. Kai Mykkänen has been signing some signatures for giving tens of millions of euros worth of governmental money to some of these projects. But I think we still could use some more. Maybe because these are huge investments. There are big investors which are behind these development projects. That's only part of the money and the calculation that you get the investor doing the project. But then you also need maybe some amount of credit support, because everyone wants to feel safe. Everyone needs to be certain that this project will be done in a manner that it will actually be able to produce the product, hydrogen, in a way that will be feasible. And there are so many stakeholders in these projects, and they are all on their toes because no one is sure that, okay, is this going to really happen or not? And this is something where our government could give a bit more reassurance still and back up some loans or some PPAs, for example.
Yeah, I'm not deep into hydrogen at all, but it is very much a question of market maturity. And early on in any emerging technology, you need naive and risk-taking pioneers and entrepreneurs, and then you need kind of the support of an ecosystem that then can grow so that you can turn it into a machine and things can get standardized and get economies of scale. And I'm also guessing that permitting will become a bottleneck at some stage, which requires more people and more boots on the ground. It's a similar challenges in Sweden as we see in Finland.
Hey, I think I have maybe 12 more questions on this piece of paper, but I want to turn it to you. We have time for 2 questions right here. If you'll wait for the mic, because we are filming right here in front of you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you. I have a question, because now we talked about electricity, and that's about 20% of the whole scheme. I always bring up the same thing. I mean, Janne knows I'm always sort of beating the same point. But, so we're talking about the 80%, which is, I mean, you showed the picture, it's transportation, it's steam, it's heat generation. And that's where apparently, and I mean, that's where also when you electrify that's where the electricity demand is also going to come from. But if you look at how much are we actually doing in that realm, because that sort of goes into, many small sort of rivers down there. It's the heating of buildings, it's the process heat, it's the transportation solutions. And this is sort of also critical for the wind and the solar growth industry. So my question is that, now we talked about we're doing great in the 20%. We like in the 90-something figures of that being sort of renewable. But what are we doing in the 80%, and how does that look from where you guys are sitting?
If I'll start off, we're getting there. We're we are picking the low-hanging fruits first. But now, what I'm looking at the monitor of Finnish investments that are being planned and are coming into realization, that's electrifying the heating sector. That's something that we spoke about in 5 years' time or 5 years ago, that it's something that's going to happen. but we're already seeing that happen. Electric boilers, electric heat pumps, electric storages and heat storages, and that's something that's happening in industrial applications as well. Industrialized steam production processes produced by electricity-reliant processes. So it's getting there, but it hasn't been mature for a long period of time. So it's taking its time, but I'm really believing that it's really ramping up. And then hydrogen as an indirect electrification in all the other sectors, maybe somewhere in 2030s, but it's getting there. And that's really going to make a big dent in the kind of the whole energy mix as well.
Yeah, if we take a look at what's happening here in Epicenter, we have Blaster Green Steel. I can see Toris here from Freyr. So we have these big development projects which would, if we get them materialized, will for sure contribute to a greener future for us.
We have time for one more in the back there on the stairs.
Thank you first for this very, very interesting conversation that you had. My question is, when we talk about green energy, transitioning to green energy, which is great news, also the pending thing is like it also brings other environmental challenge. And for example, two of them would be like that we know with the current state of technology that we can't bring enough like rare materials and all kind of raw materials to electrify the whole world. Just for Finland, I think it's fine, but for the whole world. Or another topic is now with the electrification, for example, of vehicle is like the how to recycle the battery. My question is like, has Finland some leadership on research and development or project to tackle these specific issues to help the green transition?
If I go first,
That's a good question.
I used to be at Sitra, the Finnish Innovation Fund, which is basically considered one of the forerunners in kind of bringing up the circular economy as a concept in the whole of Europe. Sitra takes pride in being kind of the orchestrator behind Finland being the first country in the world to chart a circular economy roadmap. Again, a lot of PowerPoint slides and a lot of words, but are we seeing that being concretized in action? To some extent, yes. Circular economy is super difficult. Kind of really creating ecosystems where somebody's waste is somebody's resource is quite demanding in real life. But we're seeing that happen in Finland in a lot of these investments. So kind of battery recycling is something that's booming just because kind of batteries are coming to their end of life. Then we're seeing industrial factories recycling something from the steel industry, which I don't recall what's it in English, and then other materials are being captured and then reprocessed. So that's something that's happening in the background, but is it happening enough or fast enough and in a wide scale enough? Not yet, but I'm somewhat optimistic that it will. And then there is of course the behavioral change, that the less we actually require vehicles on our roads, the less we will require any resources that are used to make them. So that's again something that's popping under in the economy in the younger generation's decision or purchase decisions, which I hope to widespread sooner than later.
Well
Yeah,
said.
it's a big question and an important question to unpack, and I can't speak too much to the Finland situation here, but there is a problem with these long-term assets like wind parks and solar parks that will be there for 40 years, and investors are not really interested right now about how they can capitalize on what you can do with panels when they are to be recycled. But biodiversity is also kind of adding to circularity, and what we try and do, and this is very micro related to your question, which was very big, but we try and always find the land areas which has the lowest natural values, where you have monocultures. Maybe you've had one specific crop that you've grown there for a very long time, so that the land is not very good. And then you kind of build a solar park where we together with biologists, for example, develop a seed mixture that you plant there. You kind of add wildlife corridors. We maybe let farmers have their sheep grazing on the land. So what you kind of can do, if you do it properly, is to find bad land, develop something there and make it better, and make it polycultural from a biodiversity perspective. So that's just coming from the solar perspective.
Yeah, and not to be too capitalistic here, but usually if there's a market, we will as a humankind find a way how to capitalize it. So what I mean by this is that, for example, a lot of new wind turbines being built, a lot of blades which we aren't sure of what we will do with them in the future, but probably someone will come up with a technology or a way to, for example, build cheap housing from them, for example. I'm quite certain and hopeful and positive that we will find the ways to circulate these forward.
Perfect. Let's give our panelists a huge round of applause. Thank you so much, Janne, Alexander, and Sampo. They're going to stick around a little bit for the networking, but thank you, gentlemen. My colleague, Adam, will help you get demiked.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Keep it going for them. Keep it going for them. Thank you. All right, if you'll indulge me for another 2 minutes, then there'll be some food and drinks, and you'll come off the stairs and you'll network. And if you need an opportunity to meet someone new, I'm perfect at doing that. But hey, I want to talk to you about an event that we have coming up. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this event, we are a community. We are a hub where people come together to share ideas, to network, and to grow. Every event that we host at Epicenter is open to the public and free. And we do this once a week with varying topics. But on April 18th, I want you to save the date for World Creativity and Innovation Day, Tech Revolution. This is a day that's been meticulously planned out into 3 segments. We have a summit, which will lead multiple panel discussions on cutting-edge topics such as the future of recruitment, AI and the retail revolution, and for our Sustainable Solutions series, we'll be spotlighting eco-friendly materials and products. Then we have an expo area. This is where the magic happens for our partners. It's an exclusive opportunity for you or someone you know to showcase your products and innovations to a diverse and engaged audience. Last year we had over 400 people in attendance. This year we're aiming for 500. So it's a great space to showcase what you're doing. And then at the end we cap off the evening with a massive party, the rave of the century here in Epicenter Helsinki. Last year we discoed. This year we're gonna rave. With fun stuff along the way. But hey, I want to thank you all so much for being here. Give yourselves a huge round of applause. Give our speakers a huge round of applause. They're going to come back on stage just for a quick photo, and then I'll release them to the wolves. But thank you so much for coming. Enjoy your time. Thank you.